Hey, Deserving listeners, time to continue watching this interview with Andrew Tate. As many of you have been asking me to watch, my name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's watch, and I'll react.
And tries his best not to hurt anybody, and leaves a positive impact on the world.
Are your actions congruent with your words? Yeah?
What else would they be?
I don't know. I don't know you, so that's why I'm trying to get to know you.
Yeah, we're here to know each other. Of course they are. Yeah, I'm a positive man. I'm a positively inspirational and motivating person.
Okay, what do you do that's motivating?
I inspire people to tell the truth, I think.
Okay.
And I think a lot of men live in a world now today where they have to lie.
Okay, that's interesting. We have to imagine the social world that he lives in, that as he speaks these things, he gets mixed reactions. People hating him and some people messaging him and saying, thank you for speaking up for us. And he hears that and says, I'm speaking a truth that no one else is saying. And I have a lot of people who are telling me to keep doing it. And that I would not be surprised that there are some men and some people who, upon hearing him talk and see his presentation, that he represents the ideal, something to aspire to, that he also validates what they believe on the inside, what they've been indoctrinated by society to believe, right? So when they hear him talk, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get messages from men and boys saying that when they first saw Andrew Tate on the internet, they cried with pain and joy of recognition that they aren't allowed to be the man that they've been programmed to be. That when they have spoken up about the things that he has spoken up about, they've been shot down and rejected. That he is saying the things that everyone should be saying, but no one has the power to do so. I think some politicians actually represent this as well, by the way. And I wouldn't doubt that when he gets those messages, it's actually emotionally gratifying to him, that in his way, he's helping other people. And it's a weird situation to be saying that. I'm guessing that's happened. So I'm guessing that's why he said, I'm a truth teller. I'm just going to take a guess and say that's what's happening. Which, of course, would kind of create a monster, right? Imagine if Andrew Tate, when he was first coming out and trying to be whatever he was, he would say certain things, a lot of things. Maybe he had a more gray, nuanced point of view. But then when he would dip into this sort of stuff, a very loyal group of boys and men would reach out to him and say, thank you. And then he has a following. And then there's a feedback loop between content provider and audience that socializes him into a more exaggerated version of that. I don't know. I've seen that before, actually. I think Tom Likas was sort of like that. I think if you're familiar, the radio host, I think Dr. Laura Schlesinger was another person that, in my distance point of view, I think those two radio personalities started out with a more nuanced gray point of view, but they would occasionally have a more extreme point of view, and then a very loyal audience would attach them. Alex Jones, I think, probably also is along these lines, certain politicians, like I said. Because what happens is if you're just sort of a generalist in your opinions, you're not going to get a lot of clicks because you're just saying a lot of different things that are reasonable. And there's a lot of reasonable people in the world, right? But you dip into something that's very controversial that really only 0.1% of the population agrees with. Yeah, you're going to get rejected by 99.9% of the people, but they were probably going to reject you anyway because they don't really care about you. But this 0.1% of people latch onto you and you are the savior. You are now essentially kind of a mini cult leader on the internet. And as soon as you step out of that cult area and you start to be more nuanced, your group attacks you actually, or there's negative consequences. You stop getting the clicks. And so you are socialized to, please these people. And so it's a back and forth between cult leader and audience on the internet that creates something that when they finally emerge into the media, into the public sphere, you're like, where in the world is this person coming from? But often there's a precursor.
In fact, I would basically guarantee that 99% of men are lying at least 80% of the time.
Really? That's a bit bold.
I think it's true because I think that...
So men are liars?
Men are liars. Women are...
What? Like these statements. Lying about what? Where's your data? Have you done the study? Have you followed the research? We've researched. It astonishes me because in my field, we read a lot of research, and there's a lot of research. There's thousands, millions of research studies looking at all sorts of things. Everything you could ever think of, we've looked at. Now, there may be some new things that we haven't looked at, like Snapchat probably, well, I don't know, it's probably a ton of research. Let me Google that. Yeah, there's hundreds of studies, scientific studies on Snapchat. Of course there's. Anyway, so it astonishes me how most people don't know that. And that's part of the reason why I decided to become a podcaster 14 years ago, is because me and other scientists, other professors, other clinicians would be having these conversations, and there'd just be all this knowledge that would be in this tiny little social group. And as soon as I stepped outside of that, it just seemed like no one was aware of what was happening. And so much of what we do impacts other people. The data, the wisdom, the understandings, the discourse. And so I decided to start a podcast partially because I wanted to meet people where they are on the internet. That's where people exist. And so instead of going to journals and, scientific journals and book publishing companies that only appeal to clinicians and other professors and scientists, I go to the internet, and a lot of people are criticizing me and still do, that I am selling out, or that I don't have integrity, that I'm not following the proper academic path as a professor. And I say, well, screw you, because I'm actually trying my little part to educate people about things that y'all are doing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that are happening. Anyway, but it astonishes me that most people assume that they've heard of all the research in psychology that exists because they've looked at Facebook or something. And that claim that he just said, that 99% of men are lying 80% of the time, we can answer that question with research. We can actually, there's lots of research on lying, on deception, on gender, and we could look that up and we could see if that's true. I'm just going to take a guess and say that that has not been found in the data. Now, what I think he's referring to is that real men, all men, want to dominate. They want to sexualize. They want to sexually objectify. They like certain things. And because of our feminist culture, our liberal agenda to make everyone gay, is literally what a lot of these people will say. Remember the whole gay frog thing? Anyway, that men are being forced to be like women. Oh no, the toxic male is forced to not be a dick all the time, and therefore he's a woman, he's being made into gay, or, it's that panic of, oh no, what are we going to do? And so what these people in this echo chamber will do is they'll start looking around, they'll be like, there's a lot of men who don't seem to be complaining. There's a lot of men who, when I talk with them at a party, they're like, I don't know if I really agree with you. So what's going on there? If all men, if I'm a man and I'm biologically programmed to sexually objectify women and to be dominant, which is, of course, ridiculous, but if that's true, because that's the premise that they're ridiculously holding on to, and I'm in the minority, then every other man must be lying. 99% of men are lying 80% of the time, either to others or to themselves. I am not lying to myself or other people. I am enacting the true glory of manhood. That's me.
You're correct. Men are liars. Women wear makeup because men fall in love with what they see, and men lie because women fall in love with what they hear. Men are liars because men are in constant competition with other men, and they have to find a way to be competitive, and the easiest way to be competitive is to lie.
Wow. Okay. So I think you're admitting to something there, Guy. You're, I think, saying you lie to compete, that you have to lie to compete, which is psychopathic. I don't know if he's a psychopath. Of course, there'd be no way for me to know, but it is, as an adjective, psychopathic to lie to manipulate and to not have any remorse about it, to just straight up lie to people to try to get, and to what end? They'll find out eventually. Now, of course, what the manosphere will say is that your duty as a man on this planet is to bag as many babes as possible. And so you only have to lie to them for a night, and then once you bag them, you leave them. Because of course that's what you do. You never, this is what they say in the pickup artist community, all these, you bag them and you leave them. You never get tied down because the true masculine male is free from the chains of a woman. It's like, I mean, if you don't want to get married or you don't want to be in a long-term relationship, then it's fine, regardless of your gender. But, a lot of people do like companionship. They do want attachment. They do want stability. So what are you talking about?
If you can sit there and convince a woman that you're rich because you bought her a $100 or £100 meal, that's what you're going to do. It's a lot easier than becoming rich. And women believe it. And as long as women are stupid enough to believe it, men are dishonest enough to lie.
For me personally,
Yeah, the insults just going everywhere. Now, most people will not agree with that. They'll say, huh? They might not necessarily know how to articulate what's wrong with it, but it'll feel wrong to them. But there's a certain group of people on the internet that I think he's appealing to, and very much so appealing to, who absolutely are eating it up. I'm guessing he ate it up as a follower of that indoctrination, and now he is feeding it back to that community. He knows, I'm guessing, exactly how to talk so that they will love him, adore him, which I think is what was happening. Now, does he truly believe these ideas and he feels like he's telling the truth, or is he just saying things because he knows that it's going to get clicks? I'm going to take a guess and say that he does truly believe these things. It's not uncommon. I've experienced many people who truly believe these things. I mean, if people believe that Tom Hanks is a lizard person that eats children and drinks their blood to stay young, and you poll Americans, and there's a pretty sizable percentage of people who literally believe that QAnon conspiracy, which is ridiculous, of course, then it shouldn't be much of a stretch to believe that there are a lot of dudes out there who believe this from their heart. Why? Because we have indoctrinated them to believe this. We don't explicitly say these things to men, but we show them that this is the way they're supposed to be, and these are the thoughts they're supposed to have.
I'm the type of woman that it's actions rather than words. I don't get like fazed by...
Actions can be a lie. You think flowers can't be a lie? You think flowers, 25 pounds on a phone call to some...
So again, ridicule, belittling. If we look at the verbatim of what they're talking about, we could get into it, but the message is of ridicule. You're lesser, you're stupid, you're an idiot, I'm laughing at you, you're a ridiculous human being. That's the emotional content.
Dickhead, delivery dude can't be a lie?
No, but there's some like good men that it wouldn't even enter the head that that's a lie. So I feel like everything you're doing is just very calculated.
Life is calculated. All men lie.
It's really not.
Men lie because,
not.
yeah, life at the upper echelons, at the highest echelons of life is absolutely and utterly calculated. Every single man at the top echelon of life is a calculated man. You don't get there by accident.
Okay, so do you want to get to the top?
Again, not borne out in the data. What do we mean by man at the top? What do we mean by calculated? But there's a lot of reasons why men will be at the top. If we were to define that, like the top of an organization, an elected politician, someone who has a lot of money, someone who has a lot of clout on the internet or something, or a top athlete. There are a lot of factors that play into success in those areas, some of which are privilege and the sexism involved that privilege certain people of certain genders, certain abilities, certain races, ethnicities, certain accent, this kind of thing. And also perseverance, education, modeling, perfectionism. There's a lot of reasons why. But in his mind, I wonder if he actually believes in another toxic masculine, another manosphere idea that in essence, the true man is a psychopath, someone who does not care about other people's feelings. Because that's the extension of, that if we take toxic masculinity to its purest manifestation, it would be a psychopath, someone who only cares about themselves and does not care about other people's feelings, is totally unfazed, unafraid, someone who manipulates other people for their own gain. That is at least a section of toxic masculinity. And I wonder if he's essentially saying and buying into that notion. And there's a lot of sort of scientific notions around, you'll hear people say like all CEOs are psychopaths, or, all people in power, you have to be psychopathic to become a CEO or a politician or something. It's just like, no, that's not what the data shows. When you actually look at those research studies, if you have some psychopathic traits, which doesn't make you a psychopath, it just means that, for example, you worry less about what other people think of you. That does not make you a psychopath. It's just a personality spectrum. Some people are very concerned and some people are less concerned. And sometimes if we add on a lot of other traits, a lot of other behaviors, then we would be looking at a psychopath. But, it's sort of like saying if you sleep in a lot, that means you're depressed. No, if you sleep in a lot, that could be part of depression if we look at the overall picture of someone and assess those other symptoms. But sleeping in a lot doesn't mean you're depressed, right? So not caring about what other people think of you as much as other people do, you have a below average care of what other people think of you, then that doesn't mean you're a psychopath. It just means you have a potential element of it. Anyway, point is that I believe from the research that there were people they found when they assessed personalities of people higher in an organization, like a CEO or a manager or something, they tended to have some of these qualities. And then the headline is all CEOs are psychopaths or something like that, which is obviously not what the data showed.
I'm already at the top echelon of man. And when you're at the top echelon of man, it's a very, very calculated process. You don't get there by accident. Nothing good in life happens on accident. When you say...
Okay, so let's just note that statement. I am at the top echelon of man. What's the top? What's the echelon? What are we talking about? What do you mean by that? It's just a statement, just something that you say. Now, what's the emotional content? I need you or me or both to believe that I am superior. That's the message. I'm superior. Take my word for it. I'm convincing myself. And I wonder if he is doing this now, because this is one of the things that people will do that have this sort of personality, is that when they are challenged, the more inferior they feel, or the more inferior they think other people think, actually, to be more specific, the less superior they feel other people see them as, the more average they think other people see them, the more they need to assert their superiority. You will find that when other people see them as superior, these individuals can actually kind of relax and stop asserting their superiority, because there's clear indication that they're being seen that way, like when they're in a position of power, this kind of thing. But in this, it's not inherent, because in fact, he would probably see it as he's coming from an inferior point, which might actually explain why he's coming out of the gates trying to assert dominance and superiority, because it's her show. She's the one that's scrutinizing and vetting the men on a date. And so he's the question mark. She gets to stay. The next episode, she'll still be there. He might not. I don't know how the show works, but so maybe that's why he's in this constant effort to make sure that he's dominant.
And don't lie because you believe in actions. I'm saying a lot of actions are lies.
Am I high-value women in your eyes?
You're very good looking. So I would say, yeah, absolutely. You're beautiful. You seem like you're a good person. You seem intelligent. You're not stupid. So I'd say you're a high-value woman, but your actions dictate that, right? The most important actions a woman can undertake is loyalty. Every man out here knows that disloyalty is the most disgusting thing a female could ever do to her man.
Again, the opposite of disloyalty is loyalty, and I think his version of loyalty is obedience, right, and subservience. And that's another manosphere notion. There are certain subreddits on Reddit that I will notice there's a culture within that seems to believe, like, someone will post a video of a woman being caught cheating, for example. And in the comment section, you'll see people say things that are like, oh, women and da-da-da, women always cheat, and finally a woman is getting her, just dessert, this kind of thing. Instead of, oh, wow, that's a really unfortunate situation, or that person got caught cheating. When people cheat, it's a bad thing. It's genderized. It's, oh, that woman. Whereas if they had different gender, the man is caught cheating, and they post that on Reddit, you get a different discourse. And so I think there are people that have not only been hurt by women who have cheated on them or rejected them or something, but then they get indoctrinated into a manosphere notion that women are deceitful, that they're disgusting, they're lesser than, they're not human. We all hate them. We agree to that. I want to humiliate them in whatever way I can. And whenever I see a woman doing something bad, it's just more evidence that I can't trust women, because that's how it feels on the inside. And so this focus, I don't know if I showed all the clips, but he's said the word loyalty and obedience and disloyalty many, many times. And then he says the most important thing a woman must be is loyal, which, if I heard a client say that, all I would hear in this bright neon sign above the client's head was, this person has been hurt. This person has been rejected. And they viewed it as a lack of loyalty. Like if he had a mom who left the family for another man or something, or if he had a mom who paid attention to his brother more than him or something. There's a rejection by comparison. It's not just rejection. It's, you rejected me for someone else. You're not loyal to me. I'm not special. I'm not top of your priority list. That's what I hear when he says that.
But are you loyal?
Let's not pretend that male loyalty and female loyalty are the same thing.
But loyalty is loyalty.
No, but they're not the same thing, are they?
Why is it not?
Because men and women are not the same.
We are not the same. You are correct there.
Okay, so we agree.
No, but I'm not agreeing to people being dishonest, cheaters, liars. He's deluded.
Why do you think men and women are different?
We carry children.
Correct.
You know, we nurture. We're, you know, compassionate, emotional beings.
Yep.
Men are very different.
I agree.
However,
Untrue. The science doesn't show that. That when we limit people to their gender and force them to adhere to toxic ideas, then yeah, you will see fathers who will not be very nurturing or cuddly with their children. But when we allow people, regardless of gender, to be whoever they want to be, and we help them to unshackle themselves from the gender norms, what we see is increasingly, as we have been doing over the past few decades, more and more men are cuddly and nurturing towards children. Plus, when we look at gay men with children, they do not nurture their children less than lesbian couples or heterosexual couples in which the mother is nurturing the child. We have looked at that. There's the science. We've studied it. It's there. So men can be just as nurturing as women can be. Women are capable of being just as standoffish as the toxic man or the distant man or the stereotypical man can be. These notions of gender. Now, if in a family you wanted to have traditional roles where the woman, the mother, is more the nurturer, the one who is softer, the one who's taking care of the child's needs more often, and the father is being more rambunctious and or working outside the house more or something, or the disciplinarian, that's okay. But if that works together for you and if that's what you want to do, but it's not the inherent mandate by one's biology that's the way things are. The other thing I'll say is, since all of us were raised in a sexist and traditionalist conservative gender society, then, or at least most of us have, then when we become parents, we tend to emulate what we learned when we were children. And that's how these things get passed down through the generations. So you might have, when you study heterosexual parents, many of the fathers might be less nurturing, might be more distant, might be more of the disciplinary, more rambunctious, with the children. And they might feel like it's natural for them to do that. That's what feels good to them. And to nurture might actually be less comfortable for many of the heterosexual men. But to conclude that that is nature rather than nurture is scientifically ridiculous. Now, might there be some biological differences on average when you study everyone and their bell curves? Might there be some difference in the average in terms of the peak of the bell curve regarding nurturing of children? Might women be a little bit more, on average, more nurturing, naturally nurturing towards children than men are? Maybe, but it's hard to tell because we socialize all children in every culture regarding this question. So we have no clean control data group. The only way for us to answer this question is to take thousands of infants and raise them in different socializations, keeping them away from society. They'd have to be raised in a biodome of some kind. Of course, we can't do that. So we can never know the answer to that question. But what we do know, which is clear, is that there is a ton of gender socialization, essentially made up notions about what gender is being pumped into children's heads. We know that for sure because we can study that very easily. But we can't know what the biological influence on parenting and on behavior in general, what that is. We can make some guesses, and there are some things that we might be able to agree on, some minor things, but most, if not all, of what people consider to be associated with inherent gender differences are socialized into us.
I don't think it's very fair for men to sit with the opinion that it's acceptable for men to cheat.
I didn't even say that, but I think if we, as intelligent, logical beings, as you are and as I am, if we agree that men and women are not the same, then our paradigms on how we enact in certain regards cannot be seen as the same.
So he's not flat out saying this, but I think what they are debating right now is it's okay for him to cheat or sexually objectify women from afar, I don't know, and it's not okay for her, which of course would fall in line with his dominant, sexist, paternalistic notions.
So if I'm with you and I then cheat.
That's disgusting. I can't believe you even said that on YouTube. You see, you just said that on YouTube. I'm sorry to the world. Please don't listen to this.
No, but it happens.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't happen. No, 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 no. Please don't say this on YouTube. You're gonna.
So, looking at it through an emotional lens, I would, if he were a client or a friend, honestly, and he reacted this way, I would assume he has tremendous pain about being cheated on or experiencing someone reject him somehow, make him feel like he's not a priority, because he is saying you can't even mention. It'd be similar to, let's say, one of your pets. You had a dog that died of cancer recently, and you're still very upset about it. You're very hurt by it, naturally. And you're adopting a new dog. You're about to get a new dog. And someone raises the idea of just like, well, have you thought about how long they might be living? Have you thought about maybe getting health insurance if they do get cancer? It wouldn't be unusual if that individual getting the new dog would be like, I don't want to talk about that. Don't bring that up, because it's too painful. It hurts too much to think about that. So she hypothetically is saying, okay, if a woman cheated on a man and he stops her, oh, I'm sorry, you can't even say that. Another hypothesis is that he is so weirdly conservative that even bringing up the possibility of a woman cheating is so deplorable to him in terms of his worldview on gender that it shouldn't even be hypothesized about. Like it's some sort of blasphemy or something. Like if you're speaking to someone of a particular religion and you say, okay, well, let's just say, for example, your mom denounces God and goes to hell, and the individual's like, oh, don't even bring up. Is that where he's coming from? Let's rewind this.
An act in certain regards cannot be seen as the same.
So,
right?
so if I'm with you,
Correct. Yeah.
and I then cheat.
That's disgusting. I can't believe you even said that on YouTube. You see, you just said that on YouTube. I'm sorry to the world. Please don't listen to this.
No, but it happens.
No, it doesn't happen. No, 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 no.
cheat.
Please don't say this on YouTube. You're going to corrupt the youth. I'm sorry for her. I'll pray for her. These things can't be said. Women can't do that. It's disgusting.
Women can't do that, so it's a double standard.
It's a double standard. But life is full of double standards.
Yeah, but
It's weird. Isn't that weird that he invokes God? And how could you possibly say such a thing? That's a weird one. I have my hypotheses, but they're not very strong. They don't feel very solid to me. It's just a weird, or is he trying to avoid? Because she's going down a line of the double standard, because he, I think, is implying, I think he knows better to say it explicitly, but I think what he's trying to say to her is, it's okay for men to cheat, and it's not okay for women to cheat. It's akin to saying Voldemort in the Harry Potter universe to even talk about the fact that a woman would cheat. That, we will never speak of this sort of thing again. But for men, that's just how they are. And again, just think about the implication there, that men can do, I, as a man, can do whatever I want, but you cannot. And if you do something bad, you don't want to know what's going to happen to you. But if I do think, hey, men are going to be men. Imagine if we applied that logic to other arenas. Like, psychopathic sadists, they kill people. It's what they do. It's totally normal. That's the logic of, one, that men are just naturally bad human beings with no morals, essentially, and no self-control. And two, you should just let it go. That it's just the way things are, little lady. Whereas women have to be pure and Madonna, the whore Madonna thing. I would just take a guess and say that, one, he's either been indoctrinated into this just ridiculous paradigm, or two, he is really hurting from tremendous pain regarding this in his past.
doesn't mean listen, regardless with your philosophies and everything that you keep
It's not my philosophies.
No, but I'm saying, okay, life is full of double standards.
Correct.
I understand that. But in a relationship,
Correct.
it's a partnership.
Yes.
Right? You and me, we're together.
Since when?
You know what I'm saying. When you're trying to build a partnership and a life with someone,
Yeah.
the end goal is you two together.
Agreed.
So why cheat?
I know, I understand where you're coming from. My point is that relationships and life is full of double standards as a whole. A man's going to pay for everything everywhere you go, right? This is his duty as a man.
Yeah, this is just classic manosphere stuff, that men are required to pay for everything, and thus men should be allowed to cheat. If we have to bear the burden of working and paying for everything and opening the door for you and working on the car and doing all the hard labor and going to war, they often bring up that thing, that, we have to rush into the burning building, then we should be allowed to drink and have sex with whoever we want to and get violent and be immoral and horrible human beings. We shouldn't have to be home and take care of the kids, this sort of thing. It's just excuses, and it just upholds the patriarchy. It just upholds the behavior. Basically, it's an elaborate mindset that you're not meant to question. You're only meant to walk away with the notion that men get to do whatever they want. Because as soon, imagine in relation to this, if women stood up and said, okay, fine, how about you let us into positions of power? And then you can have the privilege that you think we have, and you don't have to do it. How about you let us do it? Well, of course, men, in this mindset, they don't want that. They'll say, no. What they'll say is, you're not capable of that, of course, which is a whole other ridiculous. You're not, you have your time of the month, and so that just erases any abilities that you could possibly have. There's an elaborate system. Why is it elaborate, and why is it so effective? Because it's been worked on for centuries, millennia. These notions have been around. It's infused in several historical documents. I won't mention some, I'm sure you could imagine. And it's, when you have 3, 4, 5,000 years to contemplate a power structure, you'll come up with a lot of justifications for it. And then it'll be a recursive justification for a circular argument of, well, this is the way it's always been. Well, is it possible we've always had a success, at least the documented histories of culture, that they also were sexist? Well, it's in the Bible. Is it possible that the cultures of that time spouted their sexism in all of their documents, including their religious documents? And so it's this recursive thing of just like, well, we want things to be different. Well, it's always been this way, and that's the way we are. We're naturalists. Look at histories. You'll hear people say that, and it's really maddening because you try to point out the science of it all, and you try to loosen it up a little bit, and it just won't budge because their justifications are so elaborate and so convincing to them. And, I get it. If you don't study this sort of thing, if you haven't read the research, if you haven't had the discussions that I have had and many in my field have had. I mean, I've had classes where we sit for hours and this is all we talk about. And we have the debates and we kind of, well, what about this? What about that? And let's look at the research. And is there something there? Can we look to masculinity? And I will say that there are a lot of positive things about masculinity. Now, we could get into the weeds in terms of gender and masculinity, femininity, all these kind of things. But there are many things. So I identify as a man, and I consider myself to be masculine. I am not neutral about gender. I have been indoctrinated into masculinity, and there are aspects of masculinity that I reject and some that I absolutely accept about and help guide me to some extent. Try to be honest and stable and dependable. I consider these things to be masculine ideas. And so now, can women be dependable and can they lift things? There are many women who are stronger than I am, and they could lift things better than I could. All right, well, I am only 16 minutes into this over an hour long video, and I've been yammering for God knows how long. So I'm gonna wrap it up there because it's late and I wanna wind down and go to sleep. So I guess I'll pick it up later. Let me know what you think. Do you want me to do more of this stuff? I'm guessing I don't know, is it boring? Could be boring. It's interesting to me. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.